Alrighty, folks. Good morning, YouTube. What's up, y'all? Hopefully, we are getting through these problems pretty fast. So let's continue. Let's try to finish all of this really quickly. Okay, so given two strings, A and B, return the number of the positions where they contain the same length two substrings. So XXZAAZZ and XXBAAZ yields 3, since XXAA and AZ substrings appear in the same place in both strings. Okay. And okay, length 2 substring. This is very interesting. Okay. So basically the problem is asking for where there's repetition in certain places in two strings, A and B. So you can see in this problem, there's an XX as the first two letters. Same here, right? Technically, in programming terms, we can say that in indices 0 and 1 of string A and indices 0 and 1 of string B if they have matching letters, then we can return a higher count. We can increment that count by 1 and then return that count. So I believe AZ right here, that's the third to last and second to last, also matches the position here. But actually, you can't say third to last and second to last. That's very interesting. These strings can actually differ in length, and so we have to be quite careful of that. But other than that, I think the problem statement shouldn't be too hard. So the first thing that I want to go over is we know we're going to go through and iterate, right, on a string. So this is going to have a for loop. And just like every pretty much for loop we've been doing, we want to kind of go over this for I in range concept. And there are for each loops, but specifically we want for I in range because this I gives us a number that we can equate to an index within our string. For each loops might be gone over later in more complicated problems. For now, we can stick to a simple for I in range. And range requires a number inside as a parameter for our length so that we can go from 0 to that number minus 1, and we can iterate through. So which string do we want to iterate through? We actually want to iterate through the string that has the least number of characters, the lowest length, the least length. We want to make sure that it has we want to go through the minimum length, because if we go over that amount, we will get an out of bounds exception. And so if I can explain this to you really quickly, if we do for I in range 5, right, and then we go over a word like cat, right, it's a 3-letter word, what happens when it says, what's the fourth index of cat? You can't do that, right? But if you took two strings, right, let's say the other one's hello. So since this word hello has 5 letters, if we just went with that, we can't iterate through cat because there's no fourth and fifth index that we can compare to. Python will most likely give us this out of bounds exception, and we can't deal with an exception because we want our code to compile, we want these test cases to be successful. So we actually go over the minimum because at the end of the day, cat has 3 letters, and hello also includes 3 letters, right? We'll just go over H, E, and L, and we'll compare that to cat and see how many matches there are. But we have to also go over 2 substrings, so I'll get into why this for I in range has to include a bit of complexity. So we know that we're going over the minimum word between A and B, so we can just put len. Actually, I don't want to do that. I want to do min. Actually, you know what's better? You just save this to a variable. Actually, a lot of people do this because for tagging complexity reasons, like I talked about in a lot of videos, it's more efficient to save it under a variable and not have to calculate numbers. It's what they call expensive in computer science terms to do something that is inefficient. So it's not costing you money, but it's costing you a lot of time. So let's do this. N equals min, and then we just go over the length of A, and we're comparing that with the length of B. Right? So this is grabbing the minimum value of the length of A and between the length of A and length of B, and it's saving it as the variable n, and we just need to iterate through n now. Make that a little simple. Now something I wanted to show you guys was that when we go through two characters like this, what happens if we reach z? What's the next character that we have to go over? We're comparing two characters, right? So we can't take the last z here or the last c here and check for the next character because that's an out-of-bounds exception, right? So instead what we do here is we have to cut short something, the length by 1. Specifically, what we can do is we can say n minus 1, or instead, a neater way is by including a 1 here. And that cuts the short of this iterable by 1. The length of this range has been cut short by 1. So the range is smaller, so it'll go through less iteration. And I'll explain to you how we're going to go about dealing with the 0th index. We started with 1. Now how do we access the 0th index? All we got to do is check A I minus 1 and A I. Right? Oh, let me put that. Actually, my bad. You don't need to put A. You just need I. And that should be it. So if we go over this in our heads, this will actually include. Now I'm kind of confused. I think it's actually in a phase of problem. It's not going to grab two letters, right? Because this I is exclusive. It's not grabbing I minus 1 and I. It's grabbing I minus 1 and this I minus 1. So it's grabbing I minus 1 basically. So we have to put maybe a plus 1. And if I think about this correctly, let's see here. Yeah, this should work. This should work. I plus 1. We're never gonna really. I don't believe it calculates this I plus 1 at the very last thing. Like the very last thing should be this z, but what it will grab is z, the second to last z, all the way to the very end exclusive. So it'll technically go to this z. So in my mind, the difference between these two is actually 2. That should always be the case because this is exclusive. You know, when you think about arrays, you could do A0 plus A1, and that's 2 characters, right? That's a length of 2. That's the length to substring that we want to compare. But if we did something like this, A0 to 2, oops, that's the same thing, right? So the difference between this and this should be 2, but why that's tripping me is because it's not 0, 1, and 2. It's just 0 and 1. This 2 gets excluded. So whenever you have this thing, it's called list slicing. This first number here is included. The second number is excluded. So that's just my spiel on that. And this is how to access the words. So we can go through A and B safely with these indexes because we know we're not going to run into an exception because we're taking the minimum of the lengths, and so we know that a 5-letter word has 3 letters and a 3-letter word has 3 letters, so we're safe there. And then we can kind of do this. We need a counter. That's the first thing because that's what we're going to return, right? So first let's set that to 0, and then we're going to return that counter, right? And that counter can be 0, it can be 3. It really depends on the situation, and the situation means are the 2 characters going to be matching in the same indices. So now we can access A with this. Let's try to access B. All you have to do is really that B. And then you can put a double equals there, and just write an if here. And this is just saying if two letters in the indices I minus 1 to I plus 1 exclusive equals B to I minus 1 inclusive to I plus 1 exclusive, then our counter should be incremented, right, by 1. And this should work. All right. Comment below if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the explanation. If you need more reasoning, I'd be glad to help. This one was a little trickier than the previous ones, so definitely just reach out to me if you need any help. And hopefully I can comment back as soon as possible. I'll even make a video explaining a different approach and a much easier approach. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Good day, folks. Take care.